Direct Connection is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for Direct Connection. Coming up in our health segment tonight, the debate over caffeine. First tonight, we're getting closer to March Madness in the presidential race. Can Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton lock up their respective party nominations? Joining us tonight are Herb Smith, professor of political science at McDaniel College, and from Annapolis tonight is Melissa Deckman, chair of the political science department at Washington College. Thanks to both of you for being with us.
Good to be here.
Thank you.
I keep reading that Donald Trump, it's early, I know, but the headlines say that he has it locked up at this point. Professor Deckman, what do you think?
Well, nothing's certain, but if you look at the math in terms of the delegate count, he's going into the Super Tuesday primary in a week where he's going to potentially amass a lot of delegates, and it's going to be harder and harder for the other candidates to really wage, I think, a serious counterpunch. Unfortunately, I think for his opponents, you have too many people essentially in mixing up in the pot. And so I think Trump is going to win because none of the other candidates have bowed out, and I think it's his to lose at this point.
Herb, will Donald Trump be standing on the stage at the Republican convention?
Well, you know, the conventional wisdom a couple months ago was there was no way he could be really a serious candidate. Now, media's beginning to cede the nomination to him. There's still a long way to go. Trump has astronomically high unfavorables. 20% of Republican voters say they would not even consider voting for him in November, which probably double of what is normal. As the field winnows down, and now it's basically Rubio, Cruz, and Trump, these negatives are going to start to wear on him. Plus, he's been running right along the edge of just unbelievably costly statements. You know, I think he's ultimately going to self-destruct. He's a train wreck waiting to happen.
Melissa, to those points, please, but also is there a ceiling? I mean, he won, where was the last one? South Carolina with like 33%, 33% of the vote.
Well, normally, you know, the ceiling is a good point, but if it were just Donald Trump against someone like Marco Rubio, I think Rubio would handily win. But the problem, of course, is that Rubio, despite the fact, I think, in the last couple of days, he's starting to pick up major Republican establishment endorsements, but Rubio has to contend also with Ted Cruz and with John Kasich, who show no signs of wanting to get out of the race now. And so even though I agree with Herb that his unpopularity is very high with many Republican voters, right, 60% of Republican voters so far haven't voted for Donald Trump, I think the reality is that all he needs is a plurality in order to amass enough delegates to win.
Is there any chance we wind up with the brokered convention of yore?
I mean, there is a chance of that. I think it's remote, but there is a chance. If that happens, if it's a brokered convention, Trump doesn't go in with a majority, the 50% plus one, I don't think there's any way in the world the Republican establishment is going to let him hold the banner of the Republican Party come November.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question about presidential politics or even Maryland politics, which we'll get to in a minute, please give us a call. We'll have the number up on the screen. You could also tweet your questions. The Twitter address is @MPT News. Let's talk about the Democrats. Does Hillary Clinton have it locked up at this point? Melissa?
I actually think that she does. She does have it locked up. She had a very convincing win in Nevada, or I probably should say Nevada, over the weekend. And I think that it really gave her supporters the confidence that they have in terms of her placing their faith with Clinton. I think, too, she goes into South Carolina on Tuesday with really a strong bounce from Nevada, and a lot of minority voters, people of color, really seem to like Clinton and what she stands for. So I think that this is hers to win. Moreover, if you look at the delegate count right now, she has really amassed more than 500 delegates from party establishment leaders. And so she goes in already with a strong lead. And so I think that that win was very convincing. I think the win is now behind her, is behind the sails of Hillary Clinton.
You know, within the party, comparing the Democrats and the Republicans, the interesting thing is it's really flipped the old nostrum. I think Bill Clinton actually invented it back in the early 90s, that Democrats have to fall in love with their presidential nominee, and Republicans always fall in line for their for the Republican presidential nominee. You know, this is, you know, Hillary is very, very popular within the party, and it's her turn. On the Republican side, it seems to be, you know, who will the conservatives love the most?
Interesting. So let's get back to the superdelegates. Professor Deckman, you mentioned the 500 or so that Hillary walks in the door with before any civilians vote for her. Is there an equivalent thing on the Republican side?
There really isn't, which again leads me to suspect that Donald Trump is really leading the GOP field pretty remarkably. I think when
they
it comes to
the... They may have to invent some sort of superdelegates before
well, I
the
think
convention.
they have something called unbound delegates for the Republican Party, and only about 5% are unbound, which basically these are reserved, I think, for more party elites. And so there really isn't something analogous, I think, to what the Democrats have.
Let's talk about electability for a second. Fast forward to a general election. Between Sanders and Clinton, who's most electable? And on the Republican side, who would you think is most electable?
Well, I would say that, in fact, this is why Hillary Clinton is being helped, because I think when you compare her to Bernie Sanders, even though I think he's beloved by many people in the base, I think in the reality is that the general electorate will just not elect someone who is a socialist, a self-proclaimed democratic socialist. And so I think at the end of the day, Hillary Clinton is more electable than Bernie Sanders. And I think that's what you're seeing now with her getting more of a boost from her win in Nevada over the weekend.
On the Republican side, I think Marco Rubio is by far the most electable. I mean, Trump has alienated a considerable portion of the American electorate, and you can just count them out by his, inflammatory statements. Ted Cruz is the kind of person that anyone who knows him, except for immediate family, does not like him at all, and has virtually no support within the establishment. And
how would Kasich do if he could make it that far?
Possibly well. He's just not getting a whole lot of traction except for New Hampshire. And the next round of primaries, the so-called SEC primaries on March 1st, are pretty far from Ohio.
Let's grab a phone call here. Jefferson County, West Virginia. This is Andrew. Andrew, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Well, thank you for taking it. I just want to follow up on that last point. John Kasich is the only true moderate in the race. And for those of us who are moderate Republicans, and there aren't very many left, it seems like he's a very viable guy. If the conservatives all split between Cruz and Rubio and the Trump faction, there really isn't a possibility that he could bring in a lot of votes, especially with some of the more moderate states in the Midwest, et cetera. So why is it everybody says it's a three-man race? It's still a four-man race.
Andrew, thanks very much. And Ben Carson would say it's a five-man race.
Well, the thing is, there aren't that many moderate Republicans who are voting in the Republican primaries. It's predominantly a conservative show. And the Rhino label, Republican in name only, is one that's deadly in this Republican primary process.
What is the passing of Justice Scalia mean for all this? It seems to turn up the stakes a little bit, Professor Deckman?
Yeah, well, that was sort of unexpected. And I think for a lot of conservative Republicans, and you see this also in the Senate, they're essentially saying we don't want to approve of anyone or vote on anyone being nominated to the Supreme Court until this election's over and it's been decided. I think that's actually a very bad political strategy because it's so politically calculated that I think it, in fact, will maybe gin up some more support on the left, and I think it benefits a Democratic presidential nominee in the fall if the Senate Republicans rather remain so obstructionist. But here you have all of the Republican candidates saying that we should put the brakes on this nomination, when in fact we still have a long rest of the session for the Supreme Court to be held.
Herb? It would seem anything that President Obama proposes, congressional Republicans oppose. And this is in keeping with it. I agree that it's a net negative in terms of the general public who pay marginal attention to politics. They just kind of see this as almost sandlot politics.
Let's talk state politics a little bit, and maybe from the perspective of whatever's gotten in the water of the national electorate, where we have these insurgencies on the left and wherever the Trump campaign is coming from. So the hot race statewide will be Chris Van Hollen, Donna Edwards going for the Democratic nomination to succeed Barbara Mikulski. What do we think about that race, sir?
I mean, it's a tightly contested race. I mean, they're both skilled and experienced campaigners. It's going to be interesting how the Baltimore Metro, interestingly enough, I think is going to be the deciding, decisive area in this race.
No horse in the race from the Baltimore area.
Well, you know, Congressman Rupertsberger seemed to play around with it a little bit. But
as did Cummings, yeah.
And Cummings, yes.
Melissa?
I think there's some interesting parallels between the Van Hollen race and the Edwards race with the Clinton and Bernie Sanders contest, because what I see in Edwards is someone who is more progressive. I mean, in reality, Van Hollen and Edwards are really close on most positions, but I think Edwards is viewed as more of an authentic progressive voice. She has a really interesting personal history as a single mother raising her son, and I think she speaks authentically about those issues. And I think Chris Van Hollen, while a very skilled politician, as Herb says, is really the consummate sort of Democratic insider. You know, he spent many years raising being the leading fundraiser for the House Democratic Party. So I think that's where you see sort of national trends playing out in this local race here in Maryland.
Let's grab a phone call. Wycomico County, this is Lee. Lee, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Yes. Would there be a situation that you could possibly see where in the Democratic convention, Hillary was not able to be the majority winner and someone like Joe Biden could come in as a brokered candidate with possibly Elizabeth Warren, vice president running mate, to gather up the Sanders vote?
Lee, thank you very much. I mean, the superdelegates are there to basically prevent that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of an Aaron Suskind script more than anything else.
Unless her legal problems got more severe.
Which I highly doubt they will.
Yeah. Just a minute left. The Martin O'Malley campaign, was there anything he could have done differently, or were the tides a little bit too high this year? It
was a demonstration that, as in life and politics, timing is everything. This was not the election cycle for Governor O'Malley. And it kind of continues this level of frustration, at least on the Democratic side. Governor Albert Ritchie, our four-term governor, was seemingly everyone's second choice back in 1932, but he faced the juggernaut called the governor of New York, Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
And Melissa, final word, you're standing by your Trump as the Republican nominee prediction?
I really am. I mean, I think that the numbers and the math are really on his side. And if he were anyone other than Donald Trump, I think most of the media would be really talking about how he's a front runner, cementing his status.
That's a great point. And Herb, you still disagree?
I have to disagree. Well, I mean, this guy has sucked all the oxygen out of the room. But these things, he's a political bubble economy. And bubbles don't last forever. They inevitably burst.
We will revisit this and find out who was right. Professors, thanks for the time. We appreciate it.
A pleasure.
Thank you.
Just ahead tonight, new tips for a healthy heart. We'll be right back.
Tonight on MPT.
Next time on Antiques Roadshow, this is Cassandra. And this is Spot.
She came to me with the name Spot.
You knew that Spot was for you the minute you saw her.
I had to have her.
You could not find a better one.
Spot, you're doing good.
Find out how good of a dog Spot is next time on Antiques Roadshow from Charleston, South Carolina.
Tonight at 8 on MPT.
Next time on the Dr. Blake Mysteries.
Cause of death? Impact.
A man is killed after falling from a building.
My guess is he's had a few too many.
And after examining the victim, Blake has a different theory.
I think he fell from a plane.
A plane?
The case may be linked to a smuggling ring.
Illegal tobacco, boxes of it in his storeroom.
But Blake's investigation will get him into deep trouble. The Dr. Blake Mysteries.
Tonight at 10 on MPT.
The next Maryland Farm and Harvest looks at helping the hungry.
50 families will be cooking with fresh produce tonight.
And Joanne visits a Charm City farm.
How is working this soil different than, say, on a regular farm?
That's next time on Maryland Farm and Harvest.
Tuesday night at 7 on MPT.
For this week's Your Health segment, we are joined by Dr. Stephen Pollack, cardiologist at the University of Maryland St. Joseph Medical Center. Doctor, thanks for being here.
It's great to be here, Jeff.
We've been reading about caffeine and apparently some studies that say it's okay.
What's really interesting is there was one study came out several weeks ago and it made the front page news everywhere. And that's because caffeine is like the #1 drink in the country. It implied, that study, that you can drink caffeine without a heart problem. The study is flawed because it goes back to 1990, when people were drinking a cup of coffee was 4 ounces, maybe 2 cups of coffee was 8 ounces. Today, this is 12 ounces. So that's 3 of those. And this has close to 300 milligrams of caffeine. This has close to 400 milligrams of caffeine. This is Aventi. This is their Trenta. This has close to 600 milligrams of caffeine. So there's no question that caffeine is a stimulant, raises pulse and blood pressure.
It's a drug.
Yes. Now, I have to be very careful because my son Jeremy and my partner Brett Roberts, who's an electrophysiologist, said I cannot say that caffeine is directly related to the cause of atrial fibrillation. However, it's directly related to the cause of atrial fibrillation anecdotally.
I didn't hear the distinction, but
yes.
Go on.
Anecdotally. So either, in my experience, patients who are prone, who are at risk, who have high blood pressure or under stress, you start putting that much caffeine in their body, and I've never seen anyone eat a drink at all. So they have 2 of these, sometimes they have 2 of these. We're talking 600 to 800 milligrams of caffeine a day. That is an irritant to the heart, and particularly in older patients, it will increase their risk for cardiac rhythm abnormalities, including atrial fibrillation.
So when you say anecdotally you believe that, what you're saying is in all your years of practicing, you've talked to a lot of people who have heart rhythm abnormalities, and you ask, how much coffee did you have today?
Yes, and what they'll say is, I have 2 cups, and I go, well, do you mean a cup that you got in the restaurant? And no, I got this at Starbucks, or I got Dunkin' Donuts, or I got 7-Eleven, all of which are huge cups of coffee, and a large amount of caffeine. It's just, that's the mistake of that study. And it's a retrospective study, so it looked back. No one's really done a study to take a look at 2 groups of people who drink all of this and who don't drink it and see if they have rhythm abnormalities.
Do people have a different level of tolerance for this stuff? So I have almost no caffeine. If I drank one of those, I would be awake until next Thursday.
Yes, me too. And I would have heart rhythm abnormalities. I think the younger population, in all honesty, can tolerate this. The older population, defined as over 45 to 50, doesn't do as well.
What does it do to blood pressure?
Raises
other
blood
impacts?
pressure. So what's really ironic is someone who comes into your office with blood pressure that's elevated and having trouble controlling it, the first question I ask is, are you adding salt to your food? And the second is, are you drinking caffeine? Because both of those raise your blood pressure. So here's a patient receiving a lot of drugs to lower their blood pressure, and they're taking drugs to raise their blood pressure. So it makes a lot of sense for me to take that out from their diet rather than give them more drugs.
And somebody who, you're working long hours, you have a cup of coffee to wake you up.
Yes.
But if you do that every day, then you need a little bit more.
Yes.
I mean, does your body adjust to it?
Well, there's no evidence that it develops a tolerance, but you start talking to people and they need more and more caffeine. Now, what I tell people is, particularly who have heart rhythm abnormalities or hypertension, go ahead, you can have a cup of coffee. That's the cup that they serve you in the restaurant, which is 4 ounces. That's 100 milligrams of caffeine. You can't have this.
They make decaf also.
You can have all the decaf you want.
But decaf isn't 0 either.
It's 5 to 15 milligrams of caffeine. So that's nothing. You can have 200 milligrams of caffeine a day without a problem. But when you start getting 600, 800, 1,000 milligrams, you're going to have problems.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question about caffeine or your heart in general, give us a call. We'll have the number up on the screen, or tweet your question to @MPT News. Let's broaden it out to heart health.
Sure, I like that.
What aren't we focusing enough on these days?
So the number one cause of death in this country is coronary artery disease, blocked arteries in the heart. The first symptom of that illness is death, 1/3 of the time. Now that is an incredible statement, and yet it's true. So most of this country knows that if you're over 50, the test you need to get is a colonoscopy. That's the number 6 cause of death. No one gets the appropriate test for identifying coronary disease. And the tragedy of that is all the advances that we've made in the treatment, angioplasty, heart surgery, medications, none of that is available to you if your first symptom is dropping dead.
What is the appropriate test? Because people may think, well, I get a checkup every so often. They do an EKG. I've been tested.
Right. No, the EKG doesn't tell you anything about the status of your heart arteries, and it doesn't say whether or not you have blocked arteries. So the best test to get is called a coronary calcium score. That's a CAT scan of the heart. So what happens is when you put blockages inside the artery doesn't like it and puts calcium around the wall. That calcium is a marker for the presence of the disease. So if your calcium score is elevated, you're at higher risk for coronary disease. You actually have coronary disease, and you need to be on therapy. And that's before you ever have a symptom. Your EKG is normal. Your stress test would be normal. But you still have 30, 40, 50% blocked arteries, all of which can cause a heart attack. In fact, that's the most common cause of a heart attack.
So somebody with no history, no symptoms, goes to the primary care, and they're what age should you?
So any man over the age of 45 should have a calcium score. Any woman over the age of 50. What is really ironic about this is insurance doesn't cover it.
I was going to ask. Well, that's where I was going. You go to your primary care and say, I heard on TV from Dr. Pollack I should have this done.
Yes.
What's he or she going to say?
Well, I would hope they say that you should get it done. You, by the way, don't need a physician's order for this because it's cash out of your pocket. So the test now costs anywhere between $75 and $120. It's offered at St. Joe. We have a program called HeartAware, which is excellent. You can go online. You can find out what your risks are. It pretty much pushes most people towards this score. And then if your score is greater than 0, really, greater than 25, you should see somebody about being placed on therapy. And that therapy includes an aspirin, which prevents heart attack, and a statin, which prevents heart attacks.
CT scan, painless, and you're not injecting anybody with that.
No dye. It's 5 minutes. It's radiation. It's the equivalent of about 5 chest x-rays or so. And the interesting thing is, once that test is abnormal, you never get it again. You don't do serial tests. Once you've identified that you have the disease, you then go on therapy and receive follow-up from the cardiologist.
All right, talk about the aspirin thing a little bit more. You're talking baby aspirin?
Yes. So what causes a heart attack is when this minor blockage breaks, and it triggers a cascade of events that causes a blood clot. Aspirin prevents that. A drug as simple as aspirin, which, by the way, we didn't know in 1980. We didn't find this out until 1985. But what causes a heart attack is the broken or ruptured plaque that precipitates blood clots.
Quick phone call, Baltimore City. This is Marcia. Marcia, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Hi, I just was wondering if Dr. Pollack had any comments on the energy drinks that so many young people really drink a lot of. My son, one of them, the 20 and 30-year-olds, and I'll take my answer.
Fabulous question. Thank you very much.
So the Monster drinks, the Monster energy drinks have about 160 milligrams of caffeine, like Red Bull, 150 milligrams. So that's less than 1 cup of coffee. So you have to drink 3 or 4 of them to get the equivalent of a grande caffeine coffee from Starbucks. Okay. So I don't recommend it, but it's not as bad as having 2 of those.
We talked about the baby aspirin. Focus in on the statins for a second. So you do have some side effects there, or things to consider.
About 3% of people will have a side effect from statins, and that is muscle aches. Interestingly enough, when they did the study, the same 3% who weren't on the statins had muscle aches. The drug is remarkable in that it prevents heart attacks. It lowers the incidence of heart attack by 60%. That is, it stabilizes that blockage so it doesn't rupture or break, and it prevents progression. So it's, in essence, a wonder drug, and it's the standard treatment for coronary disease.
Dr. Stephen Pollack is cardiologist with the University of Maryland St. Joseph Medical Center. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you take the coffee cups.
Oh, I had to take this.
Thursday at this time on Your Money in Business, a company that is getting bigger by helping people get smaller. We'll have that and more, and then join us Friday at 7:30 for State Circle and the latest from Annapolis. Now, for all of us here at MPT, I'm Jeff Salkin. Thanks for watching and have a good night.
Your health segments are a co-production of Maryland Public Television and the University of Maryland Medical System.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.